I'm Nicole, I'm an addict.
Hi, Nicole.
Sure, I'm not nervous at all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a bit about my past, but about my journey through recovery. Growing up, I had a dysfunctional family in certain ways. My dad was an alcoholic. And they got divorced when I was really, really young. I didn't really know my dad growing up. He kind of isolated himself from us. I saw him here and there, but he was never really part of my life. Unfortunately, he never found the rooms, and he died as a result of his addiction. So my journey through recovery, I think when I was 15, I had my first major consequence. I was driving and I had drugs on me, and the cops pulled us over, and they didn't arrest me, but they put me in the back of the car. They called my mom up, and I had the whole family there with the cops there and everything else. And thinking back, it wasn't like I wasn't worried about the trouble as much as the fact that they had my drugs, which realized I definitely had a problem. Back then, they said to me, it's either go to jail or go to rehab. I was like, okay, I'll go to rehab. The next day I was chatting to my mom. She's like, Nikki, do you want to go? Do you feel that this is a problem? And I said to her, yes. I didn't want to get clean. I wanted a break. I wanted a break from using for a while, just get away from it all, because I felt, I wasn't happy, and I wasn't I just wanted a break. So I went to this rehab, and it was 12-step based, but it was very kind of not like I've learned it here, being in Scottsboro and being at the house on the hill. The one thing, the whole way, basically, most of my treatment there, I was in huge denial, and I was my biggest consequences were not really consequences at all. I realized that I had sort of a bit of, in my head, I was like, okay, maybe I've got a bit of a problem when I got a damage letter from my mom, and I didn't see it at all. It was and I remember reading it and thinking, getting really, really angry at the time, and only later on did I absorb it and kind of go, okay, there's a problem here. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stop the drugs, but don't tell me, I can't drink, because I'm still young. I want to enjoy my life. So I left rehab, and I started drinking quite a lot. My mom, I was drunk pretty much all the time. And I remember starting, I was hiding alcohol in my cupboard. And then slowly over time, I picked up again, and it was alcohol and drugs. And I kind of started the cycle of rehabs from then, I kept the whole way through the cycle, everything else was my solution. I thought if I got into a relationship, it would somehow fix me, and it never did. It always landed up going really badly, and me getting hurt, or just running from it, because it was just a chaotic relationship. For me, I look for everything else as a solution but this program. But at the same time, I never really understood it until I went to the house on the hill. Because for me, it was kind of through treatments, it was always about. I remember I had this one counselor, and it was always about my pain. That's all she ever spoke about, was the pain I went through in my life, and that's why I use. I realized today that's not why I use. I use because it's my solution to make me happy, because it's not because of pain from my past and all of that stuff, because that's something I clung on to for a long time, thinking that I use because of the situations in my life and what I've been through in my life, and you don't know, because I'm a huge self-pity victim. I like to sit and feel sorry for myself, because that way I've never had to kind of take responsibility for anything in my life. And I think it's also why I always ran back to drugs, because for me it was my escape. I didn't have to take responsibility. I didn't have to face life. And yeah, it was easier for me to run away from everything, than to face up to things, until it became painful. When it became painful, then I'd run back to rehab. It was a cycle I went through, and it took me a long time to actually see the reality of my addiction and what it's done. And coming to, I've been into rehabs multiple times, and for me it was kind of before I went to the house on the hill, it was like I was very self-involved, self-indulgent, in terms of my pain, and I blamed the world for everything. It was their fault that I was using. Everything was everyone else's fault, and nothing was ever really my fault. But coming to the house, I slowly started to realize is that it was never the drugs and alcohol, never my problem. I was, and I learned that through concern group, because I got concerned a lot, a hell of a lot, and and slowly over time, I've realized that my biggest problem is me, and then I was like that preamble. I couldn't live with or without drugs. I wasn't happy when I was using, but I was miserable when I wasn't using. And that's kind of what I'm like when I'm not working a program. When I'm working a program, I'm happy. When I'm not working a program, I'm miserable. So for me, this journey over the past year has been hard. It's been amazing at times. I've learned so much about how to live life, because I think that's what it is. It's like a program to live life, because I don't know how to live life. Something I struggled with, and I still and recovery's not always peaches and creams, and not always beautiful, and it's painful at times, and it's hard, and it's getting your reality, and it's and that's kind of been the thing that I've run from my whole life, is seeing my reality, or seeing who I really am. When I was at the house on the hill, I ran away from someone's share there that I had to go and make amends for, and I made it about, I miss my daughter, I want to go back because I miss my family, and all of that, when in actual fact it had nothing to do with it. I was terrified of people figuring out who I was. I didn't like being exposed. I didn't like people to see who I really was, and I ran. And that's the same cycle I did my whole life in active, was because later on in active, I could see the type of person I was at times, and I hated seeing who I was, and I would use. I'd use and I'd try and run away from myself, and that's what I did. I spent multiple times trying to, going into rehab and then running away, and it was all fear-based. It was fear and just hating who I was, and coming to the house, it was giving my reality, this is who you are, and working on that stuff. But this is the first time I've said that already, understood how this program works, and my whole, before coming to the house, it was always this saying, and I clung on to it, was, this is a selfish program. And I loved that saying, because that meant that I could be selfish, and I used it to my advantage for many years. It was no, you're upsetting me, you're messing with my recovery. And today I realize it's not like that. It's a selfless program. It's about helping others, My experience has been when I am sitting with someone and I'm helping them, I feel better, I feel like I'm working a program. It is, I heard it saying so many times in Big Book, that the solution is helping others, and it really, really is, It gets me out of myself, and the more I focus on myself, the bigger my problems become. That's been kind of my experience. So, I understand today that for me, this whole thing is based around fear, because every time I've run, it's been out of fear. Every time I haven't wanted to own something, it's been out of fear. Every time I haven't wanted to see my sponsor because I've done something wrong. Everything about, but walking through those fears and doing that sort of thing, it's it's awesome. Like, I feel better, if I walk through my fears. I've learned how to take responsibilities in some ways. Like, I don't work a perfect program, and I don't think anyone can, because we're imperfect. And I think that's what I love about this fellowship, is that every single one of us is imperfect, and through that we're able to help one another and relate to one another. Like, I can share my imperfections with someone else and they can relate, and that way I'm able to help them and they're able to help me. And the fact that down here, like, the love in this fellowship is amazing. Like, how we take care of one another and how we love one another, and how it's not always a nice way. Like, sometimes we have to say, I'm worried about you, and so forth. But it's I think I don't have to feel alone anymore. For me, active addiction was very, very lonely in the end. I felt completely and utterly alone and desperate. Just desperate and not knowing what to do. There was times in active where I remember this one time when I picked up the phone and I said to my sponsor, I'm going to die. Like, I don't know what it was, but this thing came over me, and this is just before I came to the house on the hill. I was like, I can't stop using, I'm going to die, and I just couldn't stop. And she's like, do you have any more drugs on you? And I was like, no. And I lied to her because I was so scared to throw them away, but I knew I couldn't use anymore. And I also was like in the end, because I didn't want to use, but I did want to use. It was like this struggle and this fight inside of me, and sitting up late hours crying and just like in a state and angry at the world. And it was the most horrible place to be. Like, the end of my active addiction was really terrible. I felt so completely and utterly alone and so dead inside. I felt like there was nothing left inside of me, like this huge void in me, and no matter how much drugs, no matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of it. And I remember just crying out. And then I went to another treatment center. Sorry, I'm moving around quite a lot. And I went onto medication there, and they've kind of diagnosed me with bipolar and put me on a whole lot of meds. And I liked some of the meds, I didn't like the other meds, so I kind of tried to work around and try and get the meds I wanted, because that was my solution. And coming to the house, it was the same thing. I remember writing in my step 11, that if they want me to be happy, I need to be on my medication, which is insane. But yeah, like today, I'm really, I'm grateful because I've learned how to live, I've learned a new way to live life. I never understood this program until I came to the house. And today, I do, it took me a long time to actually get it and understand it. It's like when I'm not working a program, I feel disconnected from God. I feel, if I'm being dishonest and if I'm doing things that are not okay, I feel disconnected, and eventually, I have to kind of work on that, because God is this whole program, and I'm grateful that I've had this experience in my life, and I'm grateful to be clean today. I really, really am. One big book session we had was, someone said, one of the sponsors was like, we had to go around the room and say any lengths, and mine was, I will not be at Cedars for a year, and I'm there for a year, over a year now, and that was my length. And I remember him saying to me, oh, you shouldn't have said that to me, and I was like, I wasn't happy. I was like, yeah, okay. But I've done it. I've stayed there over a year now, and I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be part of this fellowship. I really am, because this fellowship here is very special, and the love in this place is awesome. And thanks for letting me share.